Welcome to Calm, Clear Conversations. I'm Christopher Johnson. With me today is CEO, founder of Work Matters, Gayle Lantz.
Hi, Christopher.
Greetings, Gayle. How are you?
I'm good. This is my first LinkedIn Live, so I'm glad to have
Ah,
the honor to be here with you. You can show me the ropes.
uh-oh.
Uh-oh. You didn't bring any?
I didn't.
Okay.
All right.
We'll figure it out. That's what
We'll
that's
figure
what
it out.
that's what leaders do, right? That's our
That
topic.
is what leaders do. We look at the problem, we look at the potential solutions, and we solve or make progress.
Yep. That's what we do.
Let's see. Well, let's back up just a little bit.
Okay.
We know each other through Robbie Samuels. We were both part of his um, 5% better virtual certification, the Zoom
Right.
certification.
Right. Wanting
As a
wanting to make
leader,
Zoom better. Yeah, wanting to make Zoom easier, more engaging for people who have to be on it, which is most of us.
it is, and has this virtual environment impacted leadership?
Oh yeah, I think absolutely, in a lot of different ways. Um, it's forced them to be more creative. It's helped them connect in different ways with their people in ways that they hadn't imagined. Um, what I've seen is a lot of times leaders, um, think that being virtual creates more disconnection. But in many ways, I think the irony is that they've become more connected. They're having to reach out more. Sometimes they're having to engage with people differently. They're working harder to try to connect on a personal level, making sure people are okay at home. Um, in the past, it was business only kinds of conversations. So I think that there's been a more human kind of dynamic that's happening in leadership because of the requirement that we operate in such a virtual way now. It's kind of odd. Leaders who do this well understand that, and they use this as an opportunity, not as an impediment.
An opportunity versus impediment. So
Yeah.
it's how you look at it and how you adapt to that environment.
Always, and not that it's ideal, and it has its frustrations clearly. um, and I run a lot of meetings where I say we're going to break out of this box soon, but in the meantime, I think it's helped leaders be more real. They're showing more of their human side. Like I said, you can see someone's personal space sometimes if you're on Zoom, but I think that it really is kind of helping leaders um, build a different kind of muscle and connect in different ways than they wouldn't have otherwise. So I'm always the optimist, so I'm always seeing good in things, but I'm fortunate to work with leaders who are also committed to making the best out of that kind of situation.
Sharing more of our humanity, does that deepen the connection?
Yeah, I think it clearly does. I think for some leaders it's been more challenging than others, depending on habits that you've been in, depending on the culture of your organization. So I just encourage leaders to use their best judgment and their instincts, and to think about how they would want to be treated, when they are working as part of a team, so that they can create more empathy, have more empathy for people that they're working with.
Mm. Emotional intelligence, does that go hand in hand with empathy? Is that part of it?
Yeah, yeah. Empathy is part of emotional intelligence. It's the ability to understand yourself and others, and it's a bit more complicated than that. But I think that these times have forced leaders to become more self-aware. They've experienced a lot of emotions themselves that have been challenging for them to deal with. So I think emotional intelligence is something that's really important for leaders to possess. And the challenges that we've been through have given them a lot of opportunity to become better at that, to become more mindful.
So who is a leader? I mean, it seems like the definition has changed as well as the environment.
Yeah, I think leadership has changed. I think leadership
Mhm.
is now kind of in a new paradigm. It's shifted away from traditional top-down models where you're at the top and you have to figure everything out and then inform others or direct others as much. I think that there's a shift to more collaborative types of leadership where or cultures that they're trying to create. More leaders want to drive collaboration and engagement. They understand they can't do it on their own, that it really does take a team and it takes um, more stakeholder involvement to make sure that you're accomplishing your goals in the best way. Things are moving so fast. That's another shift. Way back when you could have decision making go through committees and analyze and have weeks or months to make decisions, and now things are happening so quickly. You've got to be able to move more quickly, to be more decisive. So I think that's another shift that I'm seeing in leadership. And then, like I said before, just the shift to being more human, to not have to be so formal and stiff and portray yourself in any particular way. Right now, the way to be is you. And so to be able to be yourself in your leadership role, now is your time. So I think it's a really exciting place to be.
The way to be is you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When we show up with all of our humanity, I think it opens the door to more possibilities.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, we all come from a variety of backgrounds and experiences, and being human, being yourself, and being able to be yourself, I think is what really, um, yeah, that has changed dramatically.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no model, it in the old days that people, well, and there's still some companies that do this. They try to have a set leadership model that they think people should kind of be forcing themselves into. And there's nothing wrong with having some set idea around what makes a great leader in any organization. But at the end of the day, if you can't be yourself, you won't be as effective. And it's about leveraging your uniqueness and understanding yourself. So it takes some confidence. It takes some trust that it's okay to really be yourself. Not that there are some things you can't work on or develop, but there's so many strengths that you can leverage just based on who you are alone. And so many leaders get caught up in trying to work too hard on I think fixing themselves as opposed to leveraging something unique that they have.
Mm.
Yeah.
Fixing versus leveraging.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, fixing is changing and could be inauthentic. Leveraging is adapting yourself to the situation.
Yeah, it is. It's making the most of something that's operating well. Um, and sometimes leaders don't even understand their own strengths. So, and you and I may have talked about that before. Assessment services can help, things like that, to help leaders gain more insight about how they're wired and what they do well naturally in areas where they may not be as strong. And then you can decide, well, how important is that in the role? Maybe it's something that you're not strong in, but you can hire for that, or you can delegate or find other talent for that.
Okay. So, there's no impediment based on personality type.
Um, well, it depends on the role. So, and every leader's different. You can have a very dynamic, outgoing, kind of forceful, driven leader that's very effective in his or her role. But you can also have an analytical, kind of more quiet, introverted type of leader that may be the right fit. That's you. We've talked about this before. We have some of that in common. But there, you can still be a leader in a more quiet way. That you can leverage too. There's so much strength that people may not realize with the quiet leaders um, that are typically good listeners. So I think it really depends on the culture, the nature of the industry that you're in. But again, I am an advocate of trying to be as much of yourself as you can possibly be, as opposed to force fitting into any kind of set expectation.
Now, is that, pardon me, is that the type of work that Work Matters involves themselves in?
Yeah, that's part of what we do is helping leaders gain these insights. To me, the goal is for them to feel good about who they are and optimistic about what's possible. So, it's just easier to be yourself. And so, whenever you can make leading easier, that's a win. Um, so that's part of the motivation. Years ago, I took some assessment services, learned a lot about myself, which has been invaluable to help me on my own career path and trajectory, and even in my own leadership. So yes, that's part of what we do is just helping leaders who want to gain that insight, learn more about themselves and other team members as well. When you can do that collectively as a group, then you have even more power because you understand others and you can leverage their strengths and play off of each other in ways that you may not be able to if you don't truly understand what makes them tick.
Okay, so that gets to there's not one size fits all on any aspect of leadership.
Well, I don't think, I mean, I think you could say there are probably some common skills that they should be developing. For
Hmm.
example, I think one of the most important right now is a leader's ability to inspire others, to keep a vision in front of them, to help others see where they're going, as opposed to being in the weeds or doing a lot of the work themselves, which is where I see some leaders, have trouble letting go of some of the work that they have been doing if they're rising into higher levels. Um, I think curiosity is another skill. Being inquisitive, asking good questions, being more coach-like is a trend. Um, Leaders want to help others develop, or they should. So that's part of anyone's job description in my mind. How they do that may differ depending on their style.
And that coaching goes both ways, right?
Yeah, yeah. Coached, you need to coach and be coached. I've always had coaches. I continue learning from a wide range of mentors and people. And I think that the best leaders are constant learners. They don't think that they've got it all figured out. They don't feel as though they've ever arrived. They're still developing confidence, but they're aware that there's more work to be done. And they're modeling to their people that this is what they value, that I'm doing what I'm asking others to do. I'm learning, I'm growing. So it's a great sign. It's a great model to set for your team.
I heard something recently where during a interview, somebody was asking about what coaching was available. This was
Hmm.
for an executive level position,
Yep.
and they wanted to learn and grow as if they took the role. And they wanted to know what the company had in place coaching wise.
Hmm.
Is that something that should be more and more brought to the forefront? Should that be part of the early discussions with a company?
What, that an executive would have with a
Well, an
company, or
executive, or how is success going to be measured, as well as how am I going to be coached for this role so that I can grow with the organization?
yeah, I mean, it's a valid question. I think some organizations are more committed to coaching than others. I think it's trending up. There's some companies, larger companies, that have a cadre of coaches that employees can call on. Um, I think it certainly helps to ask that, but at the same time, I wouldn't be dependent on an organization to provide that coaching. I know when I was in the corporate world, I sought out an executive coach on my own. We didn't have those resources internally. And even if we did, my preference at the time was to seek out a resource on the outside because I knew I wanted somebody that was more objective. So I think it's good to consider coaching, as a resource for yourself, regardless of where you are in your career, but especially the higher you go in the organization, there's more at stake in your role. So I think having that level of support can be really helpful. It was for me, which is why I'm committed you know, to that field in part, among other services that I, deliver.
And among those other services, all right, I was looking at your website
Yes.
um, author and speaker.
Yeah. I've written a
Okay.
book, working on another book. I speak where I can. Um, Doing more virtual speaking lately, but yes, I've been speaking for many years. And now, oh, I see you have it pulled up here. Yes, we do. We help visionary C-suite executives achieve critical organizational transformation. So that's really at the heart of what we do, especially over the past few years, is working with organizations that are going through change. Who want to do that in the right way and want to do it quickly and effectively, engaging their people in the process. So, okay, yeah, so you've pulled up some of the resources that have I've created over the years.
So
So,
books. And all right,
yeah,
I have to ask, do you are your books available also as audio?
they are, because I know that that's of interest to you because you're a great resource for audiobooks. Yes, I did an audiobook for Take the Bull by the Horns many years ago. So, and the new book that I have coming out, I will also probably do my own audio for that. But I think more people, from what I understand, are um, accessing audiobooks even over, regular hardback books or paper books. That's one of the statistics I've heard recently.
Well, they can go anywhere with us, whether we are in the car or at the gym. And
Yep.
that's part of my appeal. That's why one of the reasons why I enjoy audiobooks. And I'm glad that you will be voicing yours because I
Yep.
think there's something special about the author giving you the information.
Yeah, I like to listen to books and podcasts and I'm an audio learner, so that's why I've created some of those resources. Obviously, my podcast. So I think that that's something that's, like you said, easy for people to access. Not everyone likes to learn by listening, but for those that do, I think it's a really good time um, to take advantage. More and more resources are being made available, through audio. So, yep, take advantage.
Absolutely. And when is this book going to be out?
Oh, I knew you would ask that. It's been the the date has been shifting to have just the right time. So my guess is it will be early part of next year.
Okay.
I'd wanted to get it done sooner, but have had some other priorities that have come up that I'm excited about. So yeah, the book will be a shift from Take the Bull by the Horns a bit to reflecting kind of where I am now and some of the ideas that I like to promote to help make leading easier. Leading is a heavy burden for so many executives. And so I am a force to help them see that there are easier, less difficult ways, less complicated ways that they can lead and still be effective
Hmm.
in their role and fulfilled in their role, which is an important part of that. So they're not burning out.
So, what is one thing that makes, or that you've seen that makes leadership a burden for some folks?
Oh, feeling the weight of their team, like feeling like they have to, especially when the pandemic hit and people, were kind of scattered, is having to keep up with them, having to, cover for them if they couldn't do their work. A lot of leaders kind of jump in and try to do the work themselves, like I said. Something else that makes things difficult for them is the way that they view situations and the decisions that they're making.
Mm.
Sometimes, they have to make so many decisions and it can just seem like there's so much decision fatigue. So if they can start shifting the way that they're seeing even the opportunity to make decisions and being easier on themselves about it, knowing that every decision is not going to be the necessarily the right one, it's just the best one for now. So, there's a lot of the inner dialogue that really is so challenging for leaders to deal with when you ask that question, what is it that's holding them back or can make it difficult? Most of it is the the conversation that they're having in their own head.
Okay. So yeah, that never goes away.
Right? But there are ways that you can manage it. You can, yeah, bring up different voices. I've done a lot of that work. So, and
Well,
love helping others with it. Yeah.
and is it? I mean, it is. Is it not procrastinating on the decision or not being mired in the moment, but just accepting and moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it depends obviously on what the context is. Sometimes you just don't have the time to be as analytical as you would like to be. But I think a lot of it is trusting. And, one interesting technique that I've been helping my clients with is creating decision filters
Mm,
so that you know the criteria in advance that you're looking at when you're saying, if we have to make this kind of decision, what's most important to us? How will we know that this is the right decision? And they've already given some forethought to what's most important. So it helps that leader say, well, it checks out of these 5 areas that we check the box on 3. So let's go ahead and move on it. Or here are the areas that we need to shore up before we can move forward. So there are ways to make decision making easier. Um, but the bottom line is just not being so hard on yourself with the
okay.
decisions that you make, and know that that's part of the job. It's part of your learning. And if you make a decision that's not the right one, make another one. Just keep going, correct it, move on. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
I think that reminds me of a quote I heard recently uh, from Colin Powell. And it was really a methodology, a 70-40 rule.
Mm,
So if you have, once you hit 70% of knowledge or information about something, you have enough you have enough information to make a decision. Anything
mm-hmm.
more and you're stalling.
Yep.
If you have less than 40%, then you're guessing. So you
Mm,
need, the very minimum, you need
yep.
40% of the information. Anything more
Yep.
than 70, you're stalling. You just need
Yeah.
to just, and
Yep.
I thought that was a really good approach.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good advice. I would agree. Especially for leaders that I know that overthink, and they're trying to get all the data in, to make just the right decision when you're at 70% or 80% go. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, it is, you can always make another decision after that.
Yeah. When you understand that that's part of the process, that there's no real end game, it keeps going. So being able to understand how you make decisions, why you make decisions, and be at peace with that. You can't control the outcome anyway. You can only make the decision.
Wait a second, we don't control outcome?
No, I know. I know.
Ah,
I know. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Christopher, but yeah.
ah.
So that's why you just have to feel good that you've made the best decision.
But we can control effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can
Effort
control
over
that.
outcome.
Yes. You can still, shoot for the outcome. I'm not saying don't care about outcomes,
But we
but
can't control it. Yeah.
that's one
That's
of the hardest things for leaders. When they want to see this result, they have a goal. They want to, control is just an illusion anyway. They have the illusion of control. So,
exactly. And I'm going to, that reminded me of how I taught my daughters to drive.
uh-oh.
Here's what I mean by that. Um, they need to know what is ahead in order to make the right decision. If
Mhm,
they discover that they're in the left lane and that is the exit they're supposed to be taking, don't take it.
mhm,
There's another exit further on.
mhm, mhm.
The left lane to exit, or what I call, oh yeah, no. And that I think applies to a lot more than just driving down the expressway.
Mhm.
The If you have momentum in a certain direction, changing on a dime is not always the best course of action.
Right.
Like, oh, I need to get over. All right, getting over is going to take me a mile to do so. Or,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
changing direction. Changing direction is not a pivot. It is more a gradual thing.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Yep. I think that's a great analogy. I've heard a similar one using a train. If you have a train that has momentum going in one direction, don't expect it to just turn around. It's got to slow down first.
Exactly.
and settle, or you're not going to do well with all the insides of the train when it's going fast. So leaders have to understand this. You've got to slow the momentum first before you can shift it. It's an important lesson.
Very true. Yeah. That apply. Yeah. It applies in so many areas of life.
It does. It does. So, like I said, I'm always the optimist though. I think leaders have a lot of opportunity right now and can do so much, and not making it as hard as they have to on themselves, and to leverage their people in different ways. Given what we've been through, I think people are eager to want to make a difference and to jump in where they can, and they need that invitation from their leaders to say, hey, we need you. We want your voices heard here. You are a stakeholder in our success. So let's open up the dialogue differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all right. So you've mentioned a book coming out next year.
Yes. Yeah. It is. It is coming out next year.
It is coming out next year. You
Yeah.
know what?
Yeah.
I will go out on a limb
Hmm.
and say that I will, not much of a limb, I'll go out on a twig. I'll consider writing a book next year.
Okay. You'll know if it's the right time. Like, I really was inspired. It's been a while since I'd written a book, and I'm inspired to write this book. So that
But
will
see,
be a good sign, Christopher, if you feel like you really want to, not because you have to.
all right, I like that phrase. It's been a while since I've written a book
Yeah.
because that expresses it not as this monumental hurdle that is almost insurmountable. You know what? I've I've written one or two it's the next one. It's like, yeah, okay, it's been a while since I've written one. I have stuff to say. Time to
Yeah.
write one.
Yeah. Well, I think for anyone who's writing a book, you have to be clear on your why. Why do you want to write it? And so years ago, when I wrote my first one, I was pretty clear. I learned a lot through that experience. There's a lot that I would have done differently, but it's a good book. Take the bull by the horns. And now this one, I'm inspired because I think now is a time when leaders can really benefit from what I have to say in a more kind of packaged up approach like that. Something that
Okay.
they might want to study or share with other people. So I'm driven by what I see the needs are right now with the clients that I'm serving.
Okay. And the name of the podcast.
My podcast is called CEO on the Go, and it's for busy leaders who like personal and professional growth. We tend to keep the episodes pretty short. As you know, a lot of them are solo episodes, so they don't go usually not more than 15 minutes. But if I have guests, which I often do, those usually don't go more than 30 minutes. And I interview a wide range of guests on topics of interest to help people be inspired and improve their leadership and stay motivated in their role. So, yeah, it's been almost a year and a half now that the podcast has been going. So,
Okay.
that was my grand experiment during the pandemic, and I'm excited to keep it going.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well,
A
it's great
book
to
coming
see
up.
you again. Yeah.
Likewise. And
Yeah.
see, all right. So one of the other things, you're just a fun person to have a conversation with.
Ah, well, I you might be biased. We've had a lot of conversations through the other program that we were involved in, but I appreciate that. Yeah, you're fun too.
Well, and see, all right. Are the shoes handy? Because that's one
Yes.
of
You want me to show my shoes before we sign off? I heard whatever service we're using that tested sound, they had a little song that said it sounds like your sound is working or whatever. So I should have I should have brought out my dancing shoes. This is one of my little creative efforts to keep people. And we don't have any dance music, so normally to create an engaging experience on Zoom, you can actually have some music playing. And I brought out my little dancing shoes for one event just to kind of shake things up. So it's just an example of being creativity and taking things a little more lightly and
and see,
introducing some surprise.
I'm going to challenge you on that because there was more than one event.
Oh, well, that was another experiment. Yeah, you're right. I did that for a few weeks. Yeah, Friday I did a Friday focus,
And it would be
initiative.
dancing shoes and it
Yes.
was engaging.
Yes, we got
So,
people together every Friday just to
ah,
connect when we really needed to during the
we
pandemic, so,
we did,
yeah.
and a thank you from the bottom of my heart because one of the people you introduced me to is Bill Miller.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
so Bill is where I got my very first audiobook because
Yes,
his book, The Rookie CEO, uh,
yes.
he had just written it and he wanted
Perfect
to put
timing.
out an audio version. And we met on one of your Friday focuses.
That's awesome. Well, it was meant to be, and as anyone who's listening to this now, they can tell you've got the voice that needs to be speaking a book, so I hope more people will reach out to you because you're super talented in that area, and I look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing what else you do. Yeah,
Thank you very much. Well, this has been
yeah.
delightful as
Good.
usual.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thanks for having me.